Tacoma.
Hi, third graders.
Welcome back to your TV classroom. Boy, do we have something fun for you.
So excited.
Mr. Kevin, that was great. Did you miss it, Miss Oslin?
I did. What happened?
Mr. Kevin put up big science word. It was great. He was ready to go for our big science word.
He was.
So, before we tell you where we're going today on our field trip, we need to check in with our zones.
Yes.
How are you feeling today? What emotions are you feeling? What's your body feeling? Miss Oslin, how are you doing today?
You know, it's funny you asked me that. I was just about to yawn. That tells me that I must be tired
In the blue
blue zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. How are you feeling today?
Bluey green. I'm really sore in my shoulder, but I'm okay and I'm ready to learn. So
Good.
yeah. Mr. Kevin, how are you doing?
I'm a bit in the yellow today.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
one of those days.
One of those days.
It's
But
all right.
that's okay.
We all have those days. Yep.
We have some exciting stuff we're doing today at TV Classroom.
Yes, we are. Where are we going, Miss Oslin?
We are going to Alchemy Skateboarding, which is an indoor skateboarding.
Wait a minute. I thought this was science.
We are going to learn from their executive director, Taylor Woodruff, who's going to tell us all about how he, as a skateboarder, uses physics and science.
Which is the science of motion.
Things like force, a push or a pull on something.
Gravity.
Gravity, we learned about gravity.
Oh my goodness, so much stuff.
So much stuff. So he's going to teach us today about how they make skateboards.
They make skateboards there.
It's so neat. He's going to tell us about the different parts of the skateboard, including we learned about trucks.
We sure did, and we were totally wrong on our.
Totally wrong.
We had no idea what a truck was.
And
wheels.
And
I had no idea there were so many components to a skateboard, and how you can get skateboards to do different things by changing things.
Yeah.
So we're going to learn all about that
like
today.
changing variables, like in an experiment.
Which would make sense that it would then change the force.
Yes. Force,
the speed,
a push or a pull on something.
Which then changes what tricks you can do. We learned about ollies.
We did. We learned about ollies.
It's wonderful. So, next time you see us,
we'll be at Alchemy Skate. And this is a place that you can go to. You could take skateboarding lessons.
It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. And Taylor was kind enough to give us some stickers, really neat stickers, that if at the end of our next 2 lessons, you either post something on Flipgrid,
or send us something,
email us something, have your teacher forward us your thinking about forces, a push or a pull on something.
In relation to skateboarding.
In relation to skateboarding, we will send you a sticker.
Okay. All right, friends. We'll see you there. Bye.
Hi, Tacoma. We are here at Alchemy Skate in Tacoma. It's right off Opera Alley. I didn't even know this place existed, but we're so excited to learn about forces and motion.
With skateboarding, did you know that when you skateboard, you're using physics and forces and motion? You can be a scientist while you skateboard? What? So we're going to go back here. There's this door that says staff only, but we've been given permission to knock. Let's see what we find.
Come on in. Hello and welcome.
Wow. Okay, so friends, I wonder what we see there. What do you think this is, Miss Oslin?
Well, I see a piece of wood. It looks like it's carved out of, into with curves on it. I'm wondering how it's bent at the end like that. I'm curious about that.
So Taylor, can you tell us a little bit about what that wood is and why it's bent that way?
Sure. So this is what's commonly referred to as a skateboard. And the way we actually manufacture these boards is we take 7 really thin plies or veneers of Canadian maple. We add glue to both sides, and then we actually put them into our mold right here. And that wood sits under a tremendous amount of pressure for a few hours. And as that glue dries, we're able to pull the wood out and we get the shape of our skateboard that way.
What else do you have there in the shop?
let's go ahead and maybe we'll pull everything we have in this room out, and then we can look at each individual piece and walk you through the process of how we turn a bunch of stacks of wood into usable skateboards.
So now Taylor has moved quite a few pieces of wood out of the tiny shop out here, and he's going to help explain the process for putting these different pieces of wood together to ultimately result in a skateboard.
And why we use the wood we use.
Canadian maple. Tell us more about that.
That's right. So Canadian maple is the standard wood of choice for skateboards because it is a durable and hard wood that's going to hold up to the damage we create for it while we use the board. But there's a variety of other materials out there. Bamboo has a really bendy, flexible nature to it, and so a lot of our longboards are made with bamboo so that the boards actually have some flex. Sometimes we use higher end materials like fiberglasses, carbon fibers, things in the world of composites where we're combining new chemicals to create extra rigid and durable surfaces on top of those bamboos. But for our normal meat and potato skateboards, Canadian maple has been the best for years and will probably continue to be the best for many more years.
So I'm noticing here you have some different types of wood. They look different to me. And then you've put them all together. Can you explain the process?
Yeah, so I think of this sort of as sandwich making. So we've got our buns and we've got the fillings of our sandwiches. So all of our skateboards come from these really thin individual plies or veneers of maple. And the really important thing to think about them is the grain pattern. So all wood in the world has a grain, which means it can flex in one direction and it's rigid in the other direction. So this is our vertical grain. We can actually see the stripes running up and down the material. And what that means is it's got a little bend because it's thin, but it doesn't want to bend across that grain. It will, however, bend with the grain.
Oh, look at that bend.
So to create a skateboard that's lightweight but rigid, because we don't want a noodle under our feet, we actually alternate the grains. So we do a vertical grain followed by a horizontal grain, which we can see bends the opposite direction. And so as we're making that sandwich, we alternate. We stack a vertical, then a horizontal, then a vertical, so that our final product isn't super thick, but we get that structure and support that we're looking for.
Go ahead, Ms. Osman.
I was just going to say, so is this in between the layers? This is where you put the glue that you were talking about before it goes into that press.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
We use just a tight bond wood glue and paint rollers, and we roll up an even amount of glue on both sides as we make that sandwich. And the last thing, of course, is on the top or the bottom. A lot of times we'll run our graphic or our pictures. And so this is a graphic that we printed here in the shop. We have a little screen printing setup so we can transfer this image onto multiple skateboards. And once they're all done and laid up, we put them in that press that we saw, and they sit with that pressure. And what comes out of it is an uncut skateboard, and we can see the shape of it. We call it the concave. It's the 3D shape of our nose and our tail and a little bit of rocker shape side to side. And so from here, we get to start designing what shape of skateboard we want.
So that shape, does it help with how the skateboard rides?
Absolutely. So shape affects how the board feels under your feet. And more importantly, it dictates your ability to do different tricks. So the steepness of the nose or the tail, there's no one right or wrong style. Every rider gets to pick a board that they like the feel of. But in general, the bigger and steeper the tail of that board is, the more power it has when you pop an ollie, but the less controllable it is. So that's where each rider gets to pick and choose what type of board they like the feel of the best.
So a new skater might not want one that's super steep on the back.
Might not, but skaters come in all sorts of styles. Some people like that, go for the hills right out the gate. So there's no wrong way to skateboard, which is one of our favorite things about it.
Going for the hills is probably a good way to learn really quickly, too.
Yep, especially if you start at the bottom of the hill. Work your way up the hill.
Okay, so for the parents watching, popping an ollie. What's that?
What is
mean?
the ollie? The ollie is that magical trick where we jump and the skateboard seems to stick to our feet. And that's actually a combination of a whole bunch of physics happening all at once. So we're pushing down on the tail, the board is tilting on the wheels, sort of at an axis, and we create power as that tail pops against the ground. It creates upward momentum. And if the rider can jump at the right time, the board looks like it sticks to our feet, but really we're jumping out of the way and the board is following us up. So that's how we get up and down curbs, and then, of course, learn all kinds of other tricks from there.
That's amazing.
Sounds like a lot of unbalanced force.
We've been talking about balanced and unbalanced forces. And you can show us an ollie later, right?
I could do some stretches first and then probably show you guys an ollie.
Sounds good. I'm not going to get on the skateboard today. Sorry, friends.
We won't twist your arm.
So, go ahead.
What I was just say, so we do this, or we get this product, the uncut, and then the next
Where do we go
step,
from there?
What happens next?
We could go ahead and just put trucks and wheels and ride this giant brick around town, but it would probably not be as fun as a finished skateboard. Maybe a little dangerous with some sharp corners.
I'm thinking back to when we went to the LeMay Car Museum and they talked about having smooth edges and the aerodynamics of that. I think that could cause some friction and slow you down.
100%.
Wind.
So we can see here on this board, we've got this cross eye here. This is our center line. So we mark the true middle of the board going vertically and the true middle of the board going horizontally, and that becomes our roadmap because we want to design a shape that's centered. We don't want it to be lopsided or mismatched. And so from there, we can actually design, and we use a pencil because we make lots of mistakes. We design the actual planned shape of the board. There's lots of different templates and ways to do this, but again, what we're looking for is symmetrical. We want the left side to be the same as the right side.
That's a really good math term, symmetrical, third graders.
And once we have this shape drawn on the board, all we have to do is cut it out. So we use a bandsaw, and we run this through the bandsaw and follow as close to that line as we can, and that's where we end up getting our shaped board. Once it comes out, all we have left to do is drill the holes to mount our trucks. And like you mentioned, we don't want to leave hard edges on the edge of our skateboards. Aerodynamics is important, but even more importantly is our skateboards end up flying into curbs or walls all the time. And so the more we can round the edge or the rails of our board, the more durable it's going to become. So as that board hits a curb, if we have a sharp corner, all of that force is directed at the corner, and the wood can chip, split, or even delaminate where the plies start to come apart.
I was going to say, I can imagine it like splitting right down the middle and now you have to go buy a new skateboard.
Exactly, and so the more we can round those edges, the more we'll see dents and dings, but that rounded surface is going to absorb the impact and it's going to disperse it around the whole board as opposed to focusing it on a corner.
Should we go talk about the trucks?
Yeah, trucks on a skateboard.
Like I'm envisioning like Oliver's trucks that he plays with, like dump trucks.
Pickup trucks, dump trucks.
Yeah, can you get trucks.
I'm sure someone's done that somewhere, but we're going to look at skateboard trucks today,
So,
which are a little
friends,
different.
What do you think skateboard trucks are? What part is missing on this skateboard? I mean, I'm sure if I stood on that, it'd slide down one of these ramps, but I don't think it'd be very fun.
There'd be a lot of friction.
Wouldn't go very far. Trucks. Huh. What do you think, Miss Oslin?
I think it's the wheels.
Well, trucks have wheels. That's how they
do have
move.
wheels.
I think it's wheels. Are we right? Is it the wheels?
It's close. The trucks hold the wheels.
Oh.
Ah.
Oh, see, we didn't know.
Didn't know.
See, friends, we don't know everything.
So they hold the wheels and attach the wheels to the board.
Exactly.
Is what's called the trucks.
And are there different designs of different kinds of trucks?
All kinds of trucks out there, and we get to talk about some geometry, some angles,
Yes.
and some simple machines like
Okay.
axles.
Okay, let's go do that.
All right,
All right.
let's do it.
Miss Oslin, I see the trucks. Definitely not wheels.
Not wheels. No.
No.
But plenty of space to put wheels.
Yes. Can you
Yes.
explain to us what's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have the two most common forms of trucks here. This is called a traditional kingpin, and this is called a reverse kingpin, also referred to as a TKP or an RKP. And really, you can put any truck you want on any skateboard. We love that skateboarding is not about rules, but different trucks have different feelings and different abilities. So you want to find the right type of truck for the type of riding we're doing. So commonly, The traditional kingpin or TKP is what we see on skateboards. It is the classic tried and true option for adding our wheels and creating something that we can actually ride around and turn. Our RKP trucks are what we most commonly find on longboards. And so we can talk about the difference between them. If you heard, both of them have a similar name, the kingpin. So the kingpin is a part of both of these trucks. And if we look at them both side by side, both of these trucks are oriented the same way, meaning this would be the front of our board. So traditional kingpin stays back here behind this part called the hanger, where our reverse kingpin we can see is a steeper angle, and it actually comes up through the hanger. And so this really affects how our trucks turn, because again, I mentioned they're relatively simple machines. All of our trucks have these small rubber inserts that are called bushings. They're actually made of urethane like our wheels. And those bushings actually squish when we lean from side to side. And so this is our turning mechanism. As we can see, we've got a pivot cup down here where our truck nestles, and then a kingpin supporting through the middle. And so as we're riding, this truck is able to lean side to side on those bushings.
Which would be really good for doing tricks.
Exactly. Or just steering. If you're riding straight and you want to go to the right, if you've got nice soft bushings, you can simply lean onto your toes and the board's going to turn for you.
And with longboards, you typically ride a longboard kind of on a long, straight path.
So
Right.
there's lots of ways to ride all of them. Longboards traditionally...
Yeah, I know nothing about skateboards, friends.
Traditionally, yeah, we see longboards out, we call it cruising, just kind of rolling around on flat. But there's all kinds of disciplines. Much like skateboarding has park skating or street skating, different ramps. Longboarding, we can do cruising or pushing. People use these for long distance pushes, and they travel across states or across countries. Then there's downhill skating, which is speed, so it's races. It's racing downhill. People have gone over 90 miles an hour on longboards.
That would be really scary because I've gone 90 miles an hour in a car, and it was really scary inside a car. I can't imagine on a skateboard.
And to do that, these guys have really controlled spaces. They shut down roads so they know they're not going to have traffic, and they wear full leather suits so that if or when they fall, they can get back up and they're okay, as well as specially designed helmets that look a lot like motorcycle helmets that really protect and wrap around the face. So lots of different riding, and again, different trucks and different options to do all of those different things.
Pretty amazing.
It really is. I didn't realize there's so many different features of a skateboard. I kind of thought they were all the same.
Right.
So that's a new learning for me.
And how it all affects the way it moves, right? And thinking about forces in motion, how just that little tiny change in that truck makes such a big difference in how a skateboard can move.
And if you guys want, we can go even deeper. So each truck can be pulled apart, and we can look at all the individual pieces that make it up.
Oh yeah.
Should we go ahead and get a tool?
I think we should get a tool.
Let's do it.
I think friends would really enjoy that. Wouldn't you enjoy that, friends? I think so. So, Ms. Oslin, what have you learned so far? What's one thing?
I think the most fascinating part to me is the grain of the board and then alternating between the horizontal and the vertical to make it more sturdy.
I didn't realize it was a lot of different layers. I kind of thought it was just one piece of wood that they shaped and cut out. I didn't realize that it was veneers all put together. But as Taylor explained it, it made sense to me that in order to be able to move in all those directions, you have to have the wood in a different grain to be able to move that way. And I'm really wanting to bring Oliver.
Yeah.
So if I do friends, I'll make sure to put a video in one of our lessons of Oliver on
definitely, 'cause we're
skateboard.
gonna want to see that.
Okay.
Wow.
So here is an anatomical diagram of our skateboard truck, all of the different pieces. So it's a little easier to see now what I'm talking about when I
Yes.
mentioned the kingpin is this long bolt that comes all the way up from the base plate. And again, it lets us put our bushings on and then the hanger of our truck. So now that the bushings are off, we can take a look and pretend that the bushings are in there. We can see how the truck can pivot from side to side. And the harder the material of the bushing, the less turn it gets. So if you're heavier or you want a stiffer feeling, we can put really hard bushings in. Or if we want it to be really turny or carvy, we put those soft bushings in so we can really just lean and the whole truck is going to pivot. And that's what lets us turn on our board.
Think about all the math and science you do while skateboarding. And like if you come to design your own skateboard, You get to use all those skills you're learning and kind of like play around with it and figure out what the forces and motions are and like what happens when it's not symmetrical versus. That is amazing.
Plus, you get to play mechanic if you want on your board, because there's a lot of pieces, but they're all relatively simple. There's no computer programming, there's no soldering, no specialty tools required, just really basic bits. And so I'm taking apart our reverse kingpin truck here to show you the real difference in the angle of our base plate here. So a typical reverse kingpin truck is at a 50-degree angle. And so if we do what we did on this truck and put this hanger in without our bushings, as this truck turns, we can see it gets a much steeper turn side to side. And what is great about that is, as you mentioned, typically longboards are a lot longer. So the further apart you space your trucks, the bigger and wider your turns are going to be. So if we put a steep angle truck on a really long board, those trucks can pinch in and we can still get tighter turns out of it.
So fascinating.
Who knew? Well, Taylor did.
Yeah, Taylor knows.
I'm sure everyone at home knows turning radiuses and wheelbases. It's the first thing we think of when we think skateboards.
Okay, so we've got the trucks. What about the wheels?
Yeah, let's take a look. So we've got a whole bunch of options, and we'll talk about the two biggest distinctions in our wheels is going to be the hardness of the wheel and the shape of the wheel. So let's look at a few different options here.
I'm guessing the hardness has to do with the friction. Because I'm thinking about something that's really hard might glide, and something that's a little softer might grip a little bit more, which would cause more friction on the ground. Now, again, I don't know anything about skateboards, so Taylor may say, nope, Mrs. Wally, you're wrong again. But that's what I'm thinking right now. What are you thinking, Miss Osland? I'm
I'm thinking about the shape and what I know about 3D shapes and how wheels need to be round in order to roll. I'm wondering about the different sizes of the wheels and how that impacts, if at all,
and
how
like
the board.
the sides of the wheels. Like I'm noticing like some of them have a more curved side, some of them have like a straight side, and I'm wondering if that has to do with like how you want to turn. Okay.
You guys have figured it out. I was going to let you just keep going. You were getting to the bottom of it. You're totally right. So there are actually three things: size, shape, and hardness. Let's start off first and talk about size, because it's the easiest. Bigger wheels are bigger than smaller wheels. And of course, the difference there is the larger the wheel, the higher top speed that you can get on that wheel. If we're thinking about rotations, every time a big wheel makes a full loop, you're going further than that little wheel. But the trade-off here is that big wheels accelerate slower because they have to turn more to get speed. So we always say a small wheel picks up speed quicker, a bigger wheel can get more speed eventually. So we always want to pick the right size of wheel for our board. Again, you can put whatever you want on whatever you want, but sometimes if we put a giant wheel on a board with real small trucks, we run into some issues. So we do want to get a relatively properly sized wheel. The other thing we mentioned is shape. So if we look at these wheels from the front here, the profile of our wheel, we notice we got some different shapes going. So this is called a square-lipped wheel, and I think you can probably figure out why. We've got a nice corner here, right? It's very boxy. So square-lipped wheels are designed for grip. The wider and harder edged the wheel has, the more it's able to maintain its grip on the road while we're riding. Because this lip actually compresses. When we're leaning really hard on our wheel, that soft urethane actually squishes in so that the wheel keeps rolling and doesn't start sliding. Of course, some
You know
people
what that
wanna
makes me
slide.
think of? Remember when we were taking the bus down the slide at the park and then it started sliding?
Yes.
Like it got too fast down the ramp and then it like went sideways because it hard plastic wheels.
Yeah.
They couldn't grip onto the slide. Now we know.
why.
You guys could go build all sorts of new ones. If you ever need new wheels, you can try it again. Something really big and grippy. So some people want their boards to slide. Some people don't. So if you want your board to stay kind of glued to the ground, that's the square lip option. But we do have wheels that are designed specifically to break that traction and slide and drift, and they're called round-lipped wheels. So as soon as you lose that hard, sharp edge on your wheel, when you're pushing out on it, the round lip is able to drift and start sliding easier because it doesn't have the resistance. So that's why people that do a lot of sliding use a rounded shaped wheel. People that are racing and going fast and want to stay on track use the square wheels.
Who would have known? I'm so glad we came here today. I'm learning so much.
So the last part of it is the hardness. And so we use something called a durometer or durometer to figure out how hard or soft our wheels are. And it's basically a tool that punches a little needle, and however far or how fast it goes through the material determines how hard it is. So a higher number on your durometer, like a 99 or 100, is a very rigid, hard material, almost like plastic. A softer, lower number on the durometer is where we see like our grippy longboard wheels. So most skateboarders ride a hard wheel because they want resistance. They want their board to be able to slide when they want it. And harder wheels generally weigh a little bit less and have more rebound when we're talking about ollieing off the ground. We want something that's going to have resistance and not absorb all of that energy.
That's amazing. Wow. Well, I think that's enough information for today.
Yeah.
Friends, you've learned a lot today. And I'm wondering if maybe next episode we could come back and actually like watch skateboards.
We'll have to test it all out,
We need
right?
to test it out,
Yeah.
right? So next episode.
We've learned the theory. Now we need to see the application.
Right. But before we go, we need to say thank you to Taylor.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you, Taylor.
It's
You're very
amazing.
welcome.
Thank you for welcoming us into your space. Thank you for teaching us about the board and the trucks and the wheels and how the different materials are put together to make a skateboard or a longboard.
And we need to do our affirmation for the day.
Oh, we
Do you
do.
have one?
I'm thinking about, as a mom, putting my kids on a skateboard, reminding us all that we need to be safe when we are skateboarding or biking or doing anything. So just a good reminder of, I can be safe.
That'll work.
All right.
So what we do, Taylor, is take a deep breath, and then we all say it together as an affirmation for ourselves.
Okay.
All of our kids, we do it during every episode. So at the end, I like that I can be safe going into the next episode. That's good.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Ready?
Deep breath.
I can be safe.
Excellent job today, Tacoma. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you back here next time.
At Alchemy Skate. Bye, friends.
Rules. 1. You have 10 seconds to pick your crewmate. 2. A new timer will appear with an exercise for the crewmate you picked. 3. You will get points for each correct crewmate and exercise you choose. 4. You will get bonus points if you find Maui's hook. 5. If you pick the imposter, you will lose all your points. 6. Use your math skills to see how many points you can get. Good luck.